everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. So today I'm working on this little section here, which is basically the two leads that go in and out of the lower staging. So it kind of ducks under right there, and it goes down to the lower level, which will eventually be completely out of sight. The fascia will be on this level, and there'll be a skirt covering everything. So you will be able to see in there through the cameras that are going to be in here. But what happened here was at this point was actually way down there originally. And the reason for that was because originally I was going to just have one track coming out of staging, and that was just so we can get the wall to be as low profile as possible. But it turned out, after adding the third track here, it didn't really matter. So I started to kind of build this out a little bit, and I was able to move that point out here and have two tracks fit under there comfortably. Now, the reason for moving it out here is because when I was having operation sessions, that was invisible to people unless they looked at it through the camera, and it was a little uncomfortable. People would kind of miss it. It was a little complicated to explain in the beginning that, if the dispatcher said to stop at what is considered XO, control point XO, they had to stop at the green tape that was on the wall. It was just a whole thing. So now that it's out here, it's visible. It's also able to be signaled. These are temporary signals that I have up right now. But and eventually there'll be one here. But the point now is that you can come out of the tunnel, which is right here is where you're able to see the trains for the first time. And you still have enough time to stop your train before you continue on. You can see the signal, ahead of you. And on the way down, it doesn't really matter because, you're going by this signal. So you have time to stop the train there and you continue if you have a clear. But now it'll be a lot more useful for operations. Now, what happened because of this shift is that I had to obviously, create more trackage here, create more detection, or actually more like expand the detection up to here. And then, some of the wires weren't long enough. I had to move some things around. The tortoise had to be moved from down there to here. So there was a lot of shifting going on. But finally, I got the track work figured out. I decided to put a curved turnout here, a Pico, because it was the best place to create the split. If I put it here, I felt like then this became too short. And if I put it over there, then this became too short for what a typical train on my layout would be. The length of the train, of a typical train actually fits on all three of these tracks. This one, and behind the turnout, with a little bit of a space back there as well. So I just felt like this was the best point. Plus, it naturally allowed me to get that curve in with this Pico. It just kind of worked out perfectly. So I'm happy with the way it is. But now I had to figure out, how I was going to work out the fascia and this whole part of the scene. I was never really quite happy with the way this cliff was. And, since we have trackage up here. So this is what I'm kind of working on now. And I wanted to kind of show you, step by step what I'm doing. I've decided to work with foam as far as getting the scenery done around here. And the idea is to get a large retaining wall here, which is what I'm making here. This is basically very thin foam. I don't even know if it's a half inch or... Yeah, I think it's a half inch. It says it somewhere. But I found this in my garage. It was the thinnest one I could find. And so I decided to use that because it was the same size as the portal that I'm making, or that I've made for here. So it actually blends in nicely. And it's out of the way enough so that the train isn't too close to the wall as it appears. And then what I did is I made the portal and its supporting structure out of the foam as well. So I basically just took some random stuff. This is a little thicker. This material, this foam is thicker. But the way this whole thing started was I just made this front panel here, this front portal. And then from there I built the top and the side, and then decided, because this is so thin here, to go with that size foam there. So this actually fits in here. I'm going to try to do it without breaking it, but it kind of slides into this space here. So there it goes. So it's going to look like that. And as you can see, the side of the portal here actually blends right into the wall that's going to be there. And then well, this was kind of a little bit of a mistake, but I figured out a way to fix it. So originally I was only going to have the Homosode come out to here. But then I realized that the wood I had already put in place was sticking out a little bit further. So instead of like trying to cut this off and this, what I decided to do is just kind of build it out more, which I think is not a big deal. I just added another piece of this thin stuff, and that's going to sit kind of like this. Well, once that screw's out of the way, that screw's holding the whole thing together. But, you know, as you can imagine, this whole thing will be kind of like one big piece, like that. And then the fascia can kind of lean on this, right? It'll come off the wood there and then curve around, and it'll attach to here as well. So, and then I'll continue, I'll probably put more Homosode here to just kind of build that out until the next piece of foam here. So it should work out nicely for the fascia to, or the fascia to kind of, you know, curve around here and just continue the way I had it before, which is basically just all foam. Obviously I took out the foam here to expand the bench work here, which is just the spline. And it's not only attached to the original spline, but it's also leaning on these pieces of wood, which is nice and strong. So the reason why I'm also making this video is because I didn't want to get ahead of myself here, but basically what I need to do now is remove this so that I can build up and scenic the inside of what's going to be a tunnel. So my idea is that the fascia, you know, will be coming from here. This will be a solid piece of fascia, right, connected to the portal that I just showed you. But then over here, it's going to actually open up. Like once it gets to the end of this part, it's going to open up and there'll be a window. So the fascia will be down here and up here. But this will be visible, so you can see through there if you really want to. But I want to make this a big tunnel. And what I want to do is create some kind of shell here. I have enough room back here to stick a piece of styrene or something, which will allow me to create some kind of tunnel interior all the way down to there. And then obviously I'll bring the fascia back up. Once I get to here, I'll kind of, you know, either square it off or just kind of work it up this way. I'll probably square it off so it looks the same as the other side. And then the fascia will continue around that way, obviously. But before I do that, I have to at least get the interior figured out here for this first part. And I could always, you know, continue after. But for now, I got to do this because I'm going to eventually have no access to this. So I have to, you know, create some kind of wall here that will curve not only this way, but also up and around. I'm not sure if I'm going to make a curved roof to the tunnel or, you know, ceiling, or if I'm going to just square it off. I think the round approach might be better, but I'm worried that if I have to get in here for any wiring or, you know, signal or whatever, that now I'm going to have one piece and I got to take the whole thing out. So I think, I'm glad I'm thinking out loud here. I think what I'm going to do is, in fact, just do a straight piece on top and a straight piece on the wall back there, so I can just detach the top part. Or, yeah, I don't know. I got to think about that, but either way, I have to cover this up first. So that's what I'm working on right now. Obviously, once I'm done with that and I've ballasted and painted the track, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover all the foam. I'm going to cover in a thin layer of plaster, which is what I do generally when I, you know, make my walls. And that gives me the texture that I want for that concrete look. I'll probably give it some kind of scraping, like laterally like this, so that I can create some kind of texture. And then I can weather, you know, create expansion joints, whatever I'm going to do as far as like details and make it look realistic. But obviously I got to work from the back forward. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to work on that section, at least get that blocked out and covered and, scenic, and then I'll be back. All right, so here's what I decided to do. I wanted to make it a removable situation here with the ceiling of the tunnel, because I do have a lot of wiring going through here for the rest of the layout, and also for local things like the turnouts, signal, and other things. But it's kind of like a little bit of a highway of wires for this transition between this side of the basement and the other. So I decided to use hardboard, not a hardboard, this is foam board, which is very light, and it was already kind of painted like a dark gray. So I figured that kind of makes it easier when you go to paint and stuff than using like a white or something. I also didn't want to paint directly onto the wall. And I realized I did not have as much room back there as I thought before the car started rubbing up against the material. So this was a perfect thickness to kind of shove in there. And there's enough, it's rigid enough to kind of have it stand on its own. So I don't have to like drill or glue or tape. It's just kind of shoved back there between the wood and the Homosote, and it's all very much in place. It's not going anywhere. And I really only have to do this much because the situation, like I mentioned before, is going to be where, the fascia is solid here, right? But then it kind of either tapers like this, the fascia continues on top, but also on the bottom. So you create like almost like a window for the tunnel, and then it comes back up again the same way. So you'd see kind of like this kind of shape here with the fascia on top and on the bottom, and obviously the skirting below that. So this actually worked out nice because now by using the foam board at the top and at the bottom, and by creating this cleat, I kind of made a thin cleat here out of wood. I can just unscrew just these little supporting washers, and these slide out. There's two of them. So that one and this one slide out. As far as this goes, this manual turnout button, I'm going to move it into the wood here once I get the fascia up. So this is kind of like, it's going to be a little bit of back and forth where I have to remove this, drill through here once I figure out where I want the button, install the wiring, install the switch, all that stuff, and then kind of go back and replace that. I'm not sure if I'm going to put any lighting in the tunnel. I mean, it's supposed to be dark. Most tunnels don't have any lighting inside as far as train tunnels go. But I might do like a very light hint of like a yellowish, almost like an amber orangey kind of illumination by creating a bit of a lip on the fascia. So if I make the fascia, for example, rather than keep putting it right up to the edge here, if I bring it down just enough for an LED strip to fit under there facing inward, I can get a little light in there, make it look a little yellowish in there. And that might be a nice way to kind of see the trains as they go through for any, spectators, or even just for sessions, just so you can see more clearly where it is. I just don't want it to be like a bright, I don't want it to be like this. It should be a very dim color, just a hint of light. So I'll probably do that. And I can still, by extending the fascia here a little bit, I can still, I just got to be careful with the LEDs that they're not getting in the way of this, but I can still pull this out. This is flexible, so I can kind of bend it out and, it'll come out. Hopefully I won't have to ever take it out. And the wiring will stay put, but you know how things go. As soon as you make something quasi-permanent, everything under it goes wrong, so you have to start taking everything apart again. But yeah, that seems to be the plan. I put this back in just to get a hint of what it's going to feel like. And actually, I haven't checked this yet, but I'm going to check for clearance right now by sending this guy on his way. And yeah, there's no rubbing at all. Yeah, nothing at all. Let's see if it rolls back. Nope. Yeah, it didn't stop because of the tunnel. It just stopped because the wheels are crappy. Let's see. Yeah, and I'm testing with this because this is the highest car that I'll ever run, and you can see there's still a little bit of clearance there between the wood. It's actually ducking under the wood for a split second there, and then as it goes down it opens up, so that works. All right, so next is going to be I'm going to kind of paint this a little bit. Probably use this chalked black color, which is a great thing, you know, to use when you're trying to get a really flat, dark kind of look. So I'll blend all that in, the wood and all that stuff with the chalked color, and then I just realized it's a little. I'm gonna have to tape this up a little bit so I get it on the wall. And then I'll highlight it a little bit with grays and tans and things like that, just to make it look a little more sloppy, like a tunnel would be. I might even go as far as to give it a little texture with plaster, just a very, very light coat of plaster. I really don't think that's gonna create any problems. I gotta see what the clearance is, but because it's pretty close right now. But if not, I'll just keep it kind of like this, and just make sure it all blends in so it's nice and dark all the way through. All right, let's see where this goes from now. All right, so as you can see here, I've covered the wall with plaster, also the hilltop here and the front of the portal. I made a little modification to the side panel here because I had that running all the way down to the wood. But I figured if I want to remove this easily, you know, while I'm constructing this thing, I can't have this thing in the way because then it locks everything in and I can't move it around. So I just kind of cut it off at the same height as the bottom of the portal. And then, you know, the Homosew is not really attached all the way through. I just wanted to see how far it would come out, and that lines up actually pretty perfect. So, of course, I ran out of Homosew, so now I got to go buy a whole new 4x8 to make, you know, 2 strips of 2-inch, you know, height here. So basically, I'm gonna just cover here and then run one more across. I think that should do the trick as far as like lining things up between the top part and the bottom part. Maybe I'll need 2, we'll see. But so now this is starting to look a little bit more cohesive. If you can imagine this being, you know, the concrete color with a lot of weathering and streaks from, like, you know, rain and calcium deposits and all kinds of things. Just kind of, I'm gonna make this really beat up looking. Obviously the hilltop will be this color with, you know, some greenery and some ballast that kind of, you know, fell down the hill here. I'm thinking of putting a little wall, kind of like this, throughout this here, because the track is quite close to the hill there, and obviously you wouldn't just have that just kind of hanging out like that. So I'll probably do that. I may even put like a little fence on top of the wall. I don't know, I got to play with that a little bit. But once it gets into here, then it becomes a little wider. So I think over here I'm just going to put a guardrail for the rest of the run here. But anyways, going back to this thing. So another thing I did is I painted the track. So this way it's good to go for ballasting. So the idea is that I'm going to paint the background here first, get that all set up, then put the ballast in, and then work my way around it with any other details. But it should be pretty simplistic over here. On the outside, I was going to build, I'm still debating this. I'm not sure if I should build a retaining wall kind of like this, or if I should just leave it open like this. You know, imagining that there would be like some kind of hill here or something, right? So the retaining wall would have been coming out this way, or even this way. So it's kind of like cutting the earth, dissecting here. So I'm probably going to keep this open because you get more of a sight line here, and I think it'll be better for pictures and just for running trains easier, so you can see faster as the train comes out of the tunnel. So I'll probably go with that. Then the other big thing I did, since the last little section here is that I had already painted the foam board black, like that chalky black. So you can see the black kind of coming through there. But I forgot that I had this stuff. I don't even know what it is. Some kind of grout material. Let's see if I can find a little canister. But as you can see, I'll show you in 1 second. But as you can see, it gives you a really, really rough concrete look. And it even has some, like a little shine to it here and there, which I like because it makes it look like, you know, the moisture that builds up inside the walls of tunnels and stuff like that. But I like that really rough look of things. Plus it kind of helps to blend the little cleat in down there. So, you know, when you're looking at this thing, you're not going to be like analyzing it, but it's enough to give it the sense of, you know, rough kind of drilling or whatever the, you know, tunnel walls are made out of. I know you saw that button right here. So I decided to mount this button here because you really can't see it. It's for the switch over here. And since this is going to be open anyway, I figure I'd just make a little indication that the button is right under here. I just didn't want to have to like drill and put the button through. This is very thick. It's going to be a whole thing. So I rarely use that button. So if I really need to do it manually, it's just down there. I just got to reach in and just tap it. And that one, I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I just got to put a little more foam board here so I can create some kind of, you know, landing for that. So let me just go and grab the material. Sorry about the mess. This is the stuff I used. Yeah, it's grout, but it's like pre-mixed stuff. It is a little bit difficult to work with because it likes to curl up on you as you're spreading, especially if you're going thin. And you got to be careful because this stuff dries like a rock. I mean, it takes super hard and really hard to get out off of any surface that you put it on. So, you know, just be cautious if you're going to go ahead and use that stuff. That you don't need to remove it at some point. But I really do like the effect of it. Just not as easy to work with as plaster. You know, obviously plaster you can sand down. That stuff you cannot sand down. You're gonna need like a grinder to get that stuff off. So the other good thing about that is that it's gonna give the foam a little more rigidity, so it doesn't, you know, warp on me. Well, hopefully that's what I'm hoping for. But anyway, so I'm pretty much done with that. Like I mentioned before, I was painting the tracks, but I ran out of that also. It's like I'm running out of stuff like exactly when I need it. So you can see right here, it's pretty much a stopping point. So I got to spray all of that before I continue with the ballasting and all that stuff. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do in between. You know, how I'm going to fill this stuff. I might use that grout stuff in between. And then also leave it kind of rough. And then I might even put like the Envirotex or some kind of like water effect in between to kind of, you know, simulate what you might find in a tunnel. You know, you find little puddles and stuff from rainwater and seepage from the rock. So I might experiment with that. You know, you'll see it here also, obviously. So that's where I'm at right now. The next thing I'm going to do, besides what I just described with the paint and the grout and the ballast, is I'm going to start, once that dries, I'm going to start kind of creating what that wall is going to look like. Because I'm a little concerned that, you know, I want to make that right. That should be the focal point of the whole portal here, or the whole tunnel entrance. So I want to make sure that's right. And then once that's right, then I'll lock in the actual portal, you know, structure with screws. You can see the screws out right now because that's going to go straight in, and there's going to be one that goes through here into the wood here. So it'll lock it in nice and tight. And then obviously the fascia, I have to get a long piece, which also ran out of hardboard. So I got to get another 4x8 sheet and cut a, you know, whatever this is, looks like around 12 inches to kind of cover the whole thing. And then I'll cut out the hole in between, and I'll make that little slope that I was talking about to come down to here. That'll give you your window. Oh, one thing I might have to do before I do that is the lighting, which I'm not sure if I'm going to put on the hardboard by hanging it down a little lower, like I described before, or if I'm going to put it on the tunnel ceiling here. I think I might put it on the hardboard because if I put it on the ceiling there, it's not going to grab well with that grout material, and it's going to look silly with that strip. You know, it's going to look a little forced. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the hardboard. I'm just going to hang it down a little lower, and you can still see through there. It's not going to encroach too much for photos and stuff. So, that's it. Let's see what happens next. All right, so here's what I did. I carved out some gaps and cracks and gouges and, you know, splits from weather and whatever. And came out pretty good. I also really emphasized the side of the wall here because I think that gives it depth when you see it from the side like that. But I'm pretty happy with how this came out. I also ballasted, as you can see here. I got a little bit ahead of myself and I just went ahead and ballasted because I wanted to see how this looked as a combination. And I painted the dirt on top as well. I also added like a much thicker ballast on the edge there to make it look like some loose rock and things that have fallen there from, you know, from stuff like this. And it just gives it another kind of like layer of scenery there, and it outlines the ballast kind of nice. So once I was done carving all the stuff, I basically made a wash out of just some cheap ceramic coat paint and water, and I took a wedge, which I like to use. These are the can't find it now, of course. They're like makeup wedges. So I find it, I'll show you, but basically little triangles made out of foam, and they're soft, so they absorb a lot of stuff. And I took the weathering, the ink, and just kind of like went all throughout. I tried to go in a lateral kind of motion, so the streaks are left kind of this way. Then I took a brush and I went back and got inside the cracks a little bit, you know, try to get more in there. It didn't really stick too well because what happened after that is that I took some concrete paint, which I like to use the the Woodland Scenics paint. This one here. And I took it with the same wedge that I had already dipped in this wash, and I just kind of mixed it up, and I went again through it, and that gave me a nice texture and some nice highlights with dirt and grime and stuff like that. So, but what ended up happening was that it kind of painted over the details that I had painted into the cracks and stuff. So I'm just gonna go back with the brush and just very carefully get in there. I don't want to make it where it like seeps out because then it looks stupid. So yeah, so that's what I did so far. I'm happy with how it's coming along. Next, I want to try to blend in the portal because I already have all the plaster is drying down there. But I had to add plaster to the front of because remember I extended it. So I added the plaster to extend it on the outside here. So that's not quite dry yet, so I'm waiting for that to settle. And then once it does, I'll go ahead and try to match it to what I did here. Probably should have done it all at the same time because it might look a little different, but that's okay if it does. Because it might give it the contrast that sometimes you see between a tunnel portal, and like some wall that was built at a different time. So we'll see. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do on this side as far as like, I know I said I was going to keep it open, but I might add a little bit of a rock face kind of thing. Just kind of droop it down like this. I don't know. We'll see. I also went back with that same concrete wedge and I went in there and I kind of blended in the spots that were like sticking out like as just pure black. And I also kind of went through the grout with that same paint and just kind of blotched it on all over the place, kind of like randomly. And now you see a little bit more texture there. You see more layers and more, irregularities, which I think is what brings it to life. So that's going to be the inside of the tunnel. It's coming along also. I'm waiting for my spray paint to show up so I can continue spraying the track. And then obviously I'm going to continue the ballast all the way through. And the little water effects and things that I discussed already. So that'll be next. All right, so as you can see, I painted the tunnel portal here. I sanded it down first. Not all the way, I left some imperfections intentionally. I think it's still a little light. I'm gonna darken it up a little bit. I might even add a few of these streaks, kind of like, into the plaster. But definitely going to put stains from the smoke coming off the locomotives in the middle here, and weather it a little bit more. That's one thing I did. Another thing I did is I started to paint the sides of the rail, which now that you can't really tell on the phone, it's actually a lot more pronounced on here in person, but there is a hint of rust on the rail. Oh, there you go. Which I love how that looks, because it makes the monotony of the grays kind of come through by adding that contrast. It changes it up a little bit. So I did it just up to here. I'm waiting for things to dry in there. Oh, this is what else? The other thing I did. So I also added ballast. I started doing the center of the tracks, and then I realized that there was a huge void between the corks here, so I used the same material that's on the top on the portal on the tunnel walls, just to kind of fill up the gap there. Obviously you're not going to see all that, but I do want to make it a little bit exposed because, like I said, I wanted to make it look a little banged up. So I'll probably just put a little ballast over it and then just kind of weather it and stuff like that. So got to finish that. So yeah, I'm plugging away here. I might, on the next video, start to add a little greenery here and dirt and rocks and things. And before I do that, I'm gonna have to build some kind of wall here, like a safety wall. I got to just be careful because these turnouts are going to be switched by hand, so I don't want to put anything that's too tall that gets in the way, or like a fence that's delicate and I bang into it. So, but I got to do something because this would not be a good situation with the track being so close to the edge. So I'll figure it out. And then finally, I got the actual signals that I'm going to put in here. They just came in, so I'll show them to you once I install them. But there's going to be one here, one here. I'm using the G-type signals, the 3 heads that looks like, the reds on the bottom, yellows on the left, and greens on the right, kind of thing, a circle. Single heads here, double head there. So yeah, I got to finish ballasting this, obviously. This is already glued in, so it's nice and hard. And it's coming together little by little. Obviously, I got to wait to put the fascia in until I'm done with all the interior stuff, but I'm liking it so far. All right, here we are a couple of days later. It's late at night, so I'm not speaking very loudly. Big thing, I got these signals and I got them up and running. Single heads for northbound trains and double headed at the throat here heading south. I got these G-type signals because they're easier to see, even though they have a little bit of a hood. But it's better than the Darth Vader hoods that are much bigger. I also started kind of thinking out this wall here, which will run up to about there, and then from here on I think I'm just going to do like a guardrail. I'm not sure yet, but that's just I'm just kind of living with that to see how I feel about it. I might even bring this out a little bit like this and overlap it, and then just put like a support bracket or some kind of piece of concrete or something there. Something like that. I don't know. We'll see. And then the bigger thing that I had to wait for is the ballast. So it's pretty much done all the way through. And as you can see, you can kind of see the grout. It's hard to see on the phone, but oh, there it is. The kind of grout kind of like showing through. I did that intentionally. And then on some of those parts, I'm going to add the water effects. I'll darken them up a little bit with wash, and then add the water effects. So I got the ballast done all the way up to there, and I'll figure out whether I have to add another panel, because if you're looking at it in this angle through the window, you can kind of see that. So I'll probably extend it with the same kind of look over here. But yeah, things are really coming along now. Next step is, besides all the little detail work, is getting that fascia up and seeing what that looks like. That's exciting. So we'll see. But I'm glad I got the signals up. That was kind of worrying me a little bit, but they're looking good. All right, so a lot has happened since the last section. So I got the fascia up, as you can see. I decided to make a window that's not a traditional square window. Just kind of went with the angled sides. I got to clean it up a little bit. It's a little sloppy right here. But I think what I'm going to do also is add some kind of trim work so that it looks more uniform all the way around. I was going to go up to the black line where you see the marking there, but I needed a little of a drop there for the LEDs if I'm going to put them in. I'm still kind of going back and forth with the LED thing, because tunnels are supposed to be dark, and there's enough light going in just naturally where you can see it. You'll see the train come through in just a minute, heading north here. But I like the way the size of the fascia kind of fits in here generally, because it's the first thing you see when you come down the stairs here. And so it's kind of cool to see that tunnel portal there. So I'm happy with that. Obviously, it's going to get painted black once I'm done messing around here. And it'll look more uniform when everything is black. And there'll be a skirt that hangs from there down. So all of this will be completely covered. And then over here, I didn't do anything except just the ballast work, which I think I had already done in my last video. But I did get the signals up and running. They're working now. Everything is hooked up to CATs. So, it's all functioning. It's detecting. And I got rid of the problem with the shorts that I was having. I was having a couple of short circuits as well. But I think this looks great. And so, I'm getting to the point now where it's more detail work. At least in this general, space that I have going on here. But I do still have to work on the things that I was talking about before, with some kind of railing here or a wall or something. And then the fascia, I think what I'm going to do is just go square with the fascia. So I'm going to add another piece that starts here and then comes out this way. I'm going to try to make it one piece without breaking it, so that I can just spackle here, and I don't have to spackle here and here, because I don't want to have to make like a skinny piece here and then another piece here. So let's see if I can pull it off. But I like the way this is nice and open like this, so I don't want to have to carry that fascia down, because I feel like it blocks, what's cool about that scene. So, and then obviously I'm going to add the greenery here and continue the fascia all the way through. So I got to get some ballast in the tracks here. This is the block for the turnout, so all this, and then I might even continue that way if I feel like torturing myself a little further. So I'll do that. I am debating whether I should, there is rock behind the signal there, so I might just leave it like that, but I was debating putting a small kind of like retaining wall back here. And I might even push this stuff back so that it looks a little bit more or less forced. But, if there was rock here in the first place, then I guess that wouldn't really affect the signal. So what I might do is just cover the spots that are not rock. Maybe I'll just add a little more of that rock effect. You know, take it back here a little further, because if I start adding, you know, shrubbery and all kinds of things, it's going to start sticking out. And from what I've seen, you know, you would not have that kind of situation in a real railroad where there's like, you know, grass and weeds and stuff like growing around the signal mast. That's usually kept, you know, clear. So anyways, that's where I am so far. And I guess at the next video I will be, I also have to kind of fill this part in here, paint it, and I think I'm gonna go with the coarse rock that I put here as like the, you know, the outside part of the tunnel. So I'll cover all that, and maybe paint this piece of wood here black also, so you really only see the tunnel from here on. I'll mess around with that, see what looks best. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's see what happens next.